Hey everyone, Harley here. Welcome back for another episode of The Life of a Rebel. And today with me, I have Michelle, who is the founder and the CEO of an amazing company called Lively. And she's built this incredibly successful women's intimates company. And Michelle is someone that I've known for quite a few years. I feel like I've been part of the Lively story and watching her grow this company. And so, Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure.
I want to start way back at the beginning. One of the questions that I love to ask people is, I want to ask about your childhood. I want to ask about the first job that you ever had when you were growing up.
Oh, well, I could not wait to get my first job and make my own money. So the day that I turned 14, I rode my bike and my mom found me at a motel where I was trying to get a job as a housekeeper. And she was like, no. And then I found a job at Rita's Italian Ice, $4.75 and all the ice you can eat.
For me, at least, growing up, I never heard the term entrepreneur. It just wasn't in sort of the zeitgeist of my household. And in many ways, you know, my parents wanted me to do something more professional. I'm curious about you. You know, one of the things that you and I have talked about is that you come from a family full of doctors and scientists, and I'm curious how that entrepreneurial bug came to you, and also how your parents reacted to that.
Sure, yeah. So both my parents immigrated to this wonderful country from India, and my family is predominantly doctors and scientists and chemical engineers. And so I grew up thinking that success was doctor, lawyer, investment banker, like fact.
That's it.
And that was it. Those were your three options. But what I started to realize is I was not living my life for me. I was living my life to satisfy my parents and fit into my society and so forth. And so that was a lot of pressure growing up, thinking that I needed to fulfill and check those boxes.
Talk to me a little bit about what happened working Victoria's Secret and how ultimately that led to you, starting the company.
Sure, yeah. So I was so fortunate that I found a career in fashion, brand creation, and
This is
product.
so after university, you graduate and then you go to brand creation.
Exactly. At Federated, it wasn't as sexy as brand creation. It was product assistant, just typing in product orders. But I was opened to this whole world of brand and what that did to the human psyche. And I learned that it wasn't about, yes, the product needed to be good, but what was the story behind it? And I was just fascinated with Ralph Lauren, you know, how this brand, this logo made people feel. Not because the polo felt awesome, it's because that logo represented something. So when I got to Victoria's Secret, I realized I was working for one of the most powerful brands in the world. They had 30 to 40% market share of $13 billion in the United States, double-digit operating income. But more importantly, anywhere you went in the world, regardless of the language the people were speaking, they saw that logo and we all saw Angel Fantasy Push-Up. Like Les Wexner taught us how to build brand and the power of cohesiveness and discipline. So personally, what happened at the same time while I was there for almost 5 years was I met my husband and I got married, and I started to realize that I was exhausted from trying to fit in with marketing campaigns. Like I didn't look like the supermodel. I could not wear these push-up bras anymore. Stilettos were killing my feet. Like why was I putting this armor on every day? And then I looked at this man that was marrying me for all my flaws and imperfections. But at the end of the day, it was my human uniqueness. And that's when the light bulb went off. I said, society and social media and community, we're all celebrating individuality. Where's the brand for that?
So you talk about brand and learning about brand inside of Victoria's Secret, but what was Michelle's brand inside Victoria's Secret? Were you the challenger? Did you kind of look around and see all the ways they were doing things wrong?
In a way, yes. So when I joined Victoria's Secret, I joined an area called Victoria's Secret Direct. And at the time, it was their catalog business, which was $1 billion of clothing that was being sold, but no one really talked about it.
And it was sort of, today it would be called DTC.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But what was interesting is the company viewed it as a catalog business, yet 98% of the sales were happening online. So it wasn't a catalog business. It was a D2C business. And so I would go in and say, why aren't we looking at the web first and the catalog second? The whole organization was worried about paginating the catalog. I'm like, we should do the web first. So I would go in on the weekends and come up with strategies and processes. And I would pitch them to the VPs and say, this is how we can look at this web first. So yeah, I kind of was always not comfortable.
At some point, you decide that you're done here, and it's sort of your time to leave Victoria's Secret. Did you leave immediately to go launch your own business, to do your own thing? Did you leave frustrated? How did you sort of think about, like, tell me about that decision to leave Victoria's Secret, and then what happened next?
Sure. Yeah. There was little things that were happening, right? Mobile, in my mind, was huge. We were living on our phones, but it was a small part of the business and it wasn't being talked about in our leadership conversations. And size, like we weren't delivering sizes past a certain place, and that felt, kind of icky. And then maternity, we weren't doing maternity, and that was the next chapter of my life. So I left, and I thought I'm going to start my own thing, but I wasn't ignorant to think I knew how. And so being kind of I'm not a huge risk taker like most entrepreneurs are. Being a low risk entrepreneur, I decided to go work for a startup for 3 years and understand how the whole machine worked versus these small specialized areas that I was, experienced in.
So tell me about what you learned at the startup, and what were some of the major takeaways that you had. I mean, you obviously came in with this new concept about what brand is, how does brand make people feel, but what were some of the things that made you that really stuck with you even to this day from that startup?
Yeah, I think number one was the importance of brand values and company culture and so forth. And we had an amazing company culture there. I think from a brand perspective, though, we were really more interested in acquisition and building the numbers and the revenue and so forth. And so I would say number one is creating your core values and sticking with them, even though there's easy yeses and opportunities that come your way. The second thing that I think is really critical is the word retention. We thought about acquisition a lot, but we didn't think about the stickiness in the customer journey past the first purchase. And that, at the end of the day, is what really makes brands successful.
So you're at the startup. You're there for 3 years, you said?
3 years.
3 years. What happens at the end of that?
So then I get itchy again. And, I start to see Warby and Harry's and everyone just really catapulting these industries on their heads, right? And I knew one really well, which was lingerie from the inside out with an amazing profit opportunity. And I had this fire inside me that I had something to say and I wanted to do it through brand. But I didn't know how I was going to do that because, again, I'm not the riskiest entrepreneur. So I knew if I wanted to start a company, I needed an investor and I needed a foundation. At this point, my daughter was almost one. And I wasn't ready to do something bootstrapped. So I quit my job again and I found what was really just serendipitous, the CEO of one of the largest manufacturing companies in lingerie, the largest producer for Walmart in the sector. He was third generation on this company, and him and I were on this parallel path mentally. He had the supply chain.
What do you mean by that?
So he was thinking for the last couple of years before we met, he's like, well, I have this supply chain and I see Harry's, Warby, Casper disrupting these industries. And I supply, for this industry that is very dusty, dated, but has huge margin. My brain was on that same path at the same time. And finally, our worlds collided through networking. And we sat down and he's like, I'm looking for someone that wants to start a brand. And I said, great, because I'm looking for someone that wants to fund a brand with supply chain.
So you have the plan now. You secured your investor. What's the first thing that you do in terms of getting the business off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's kind of funny. I left my job on a Friday. And I woke up on Monday as if I had a job, did the same thing, coffee, workout, walked to a now empty office. And I remember walking into that office and sitting down, 3 empty walls and a glass door with a notebook and a pen and saying, okay, let's start a company. And I had no idea what to do. I was sweating and I had told everyone I was starting a company and it was going to be the greatest thing ever. And I had money in a bank and things needed to happen. So instead of just like wallowing in fear, which was the first hour, to be honest, I wrote a list of everything that I didn't know what to do with. So where was I most vulnerable? And it was digital marketing, even though I was starting a digital company, a fulfillment system, customer service, et cetera. And I started just to reach out to people, again, going back to that network and saying, who are the people that are going to support me in all of these areas so that I'm not terrified and I know what to do. And I probably spent like 4 days doing that, just bribing people with like smoothies, coffees, workouts, like whatever it would take, meet people on their commute to work. And I would just constantly retell the story of what I was creating. And it's funny, I got on the phone with someone yesterday who met with me that week, and they were like, Michelle, remember when you had that ridiculous PowerPoint and you were like selling me on this brand? And I said, look, honestly, I was selling myself.
Right. Yeah.
I was talking myself out of fear and back into confidence.
Before we sort of get to, where you are today, and Lively is huge today. It's this amazing success story. But talk to me about those sort of first couple of months and how you sort of thought about the brand itself and what you were using as a driver to begin to explain what Lively is in the world.
Yeah. So one thing that I knew, which was great, is building a brand is 3-dimensional. But our minds, we often talk 2-dimensional, where you have to not just tell people what it is, you have to see it, you have to smell it, you have to feel it. And so what I realized is I had all of these ideas inside of me, but I needed to get them out 3-dimensionally. So the first thing I did was I called up my friend Jeremy, who's amazing at brand and articulating brand. And it was a Friday, and I was like, come hang out in my office. I have beer and we can talk.
More bribery, which is a common thread of the story too.
It was great. And we talked for 4 hours, and I kept filling up beers and speaking about everything that was inside of me. He was drawing and writing and da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, like 4 hours later, we're like, whoa, okay. It came out, and I saw this whole dialogue around this person I was calling Liv. And Liv was confident, and Liv was the girl that walked into the room and the party started, and Liv lived on her own terms, and she never looked uncomfortable or fidgeted and so forth. And so this persona just started to craft into something physical. And then the second thing that I did was I found someone that was actually an expert in creating the 3-dimensional, Sarah Sullivan, who's my creative director to this day. And her and I met in a coffee shop in Bryant Park. And I said, I want to build a brand, but I want to build it with you, but we have to see the same thing. So we spent the whole day walking around New York City and just buying things that made us happy. Birthday candles from ABC Home and Carpet, yoga pants, swimsuits, packaging, ridiculous things. And we built a board that represented those feel-good moments. And we stood back and we said, this is her, this is Liv, this is coming together. But the thing that her and I realized in that journey was, okay, where do bras fit into this? And we were like, they don't. Why? Why are bras not something we're excited about, that we're celebrating, that we're really excited to buy? What are the things adjacent to it that we are? And it was swimwear, and it was active. And so I remember the moment, but we cut a waistband off a yoga pant, and we stapled it to this lace bralette. And we're like, that's it. That's lingerie. It's athleisure. It's swimwear and functional lingerie coming together to be something that we love.
Was there anyone at this point that was doing something like that? Was this how out of left field is this idea?
It felt really out of left field in the fact that our manufacturer, our supplier and our investor were like, so this is what we want to make. And they're like, well,
sure?
I don't know if that's going to work, or, well, we will try, we will do this, but it's so different that the manufacturer said, we're going to build a factory for you, because there isn't a factory that's going to do this well.
And were you able to give them a sufficient or a requisite amount of orders to justify that?
No. They were like, how much do you want to buy? I was like, 10 of every size? I don't know.
Our minimums are 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it was definitely out of left field. And I remember even coming up with the word lingerie. I was on a run in Central Park, and I came into the office. We had 3 people, me, 2 other people, and I wrote it on a gold Sharpie on a piece of paper and said, this is what it is. It's lingerie. And I thought it was brilliant. And they looked at me and they were like, that's ridiculous. Back to work. And I was like, just sit on it. Just think on it. And I taped it up on the wall. And it took months for people to be like, okay, we got it.
I get it. Right. So before we sort of get to where we're at now, let's go back. One of the things that, and I met you around this time. So about 2 months or so after you launched Lively, you found out that you were pregnant with your second child. And I'd love to hear from you some of the learnings that you had over, raising a child and launching a business effectively at the exact same time. I think it's an important part of your story, and I want to hear about that.
Sure. Yes. I remember the day that I found out I was pregnant. I was at a PR happy hour and I remember my rosé did not taste right. I'm like, this is something's up here. So I went home and I remember finding out I was pregnant and I looked at my husband and I was crying inside. I did not know what to do. But the beautiful thing about that was it forced me to realize that I'm a part of a team. It's not just me carrying this torch, it's the people that are here. And so fast forward, the company starts to really go off on a tear. My son Jack is born on February 1st, and a week later, I'm home with a laptop on my bed and my son to my right and this laptop to the left, and I'm like looking at him and typing away and looking at him and typing away. And it was just, the walls were caving in. We were changing warehouses. We had 1,000 customers writing in. I just couldn't breathe. But, when those moments happen, you look around for signals of support. And this crazy email came into my inbox at midnight one night, and it was from Shopify. and Shopify.
What did that email say?
The email said, build a bigger business. Be mentored by Damon John and Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss and Harley and Toby and Marie Forleo. And I was just like, yes.
That week was all about helping each other grow, helping each other get out of our comfort zone. So when we return back to our respective companies, we would be in a better position. And I know that week was impactful for you, and you and I've talked a lot about that, but sort of talk about that a little bit. What happened that week? What was sort of the realization for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had one major light bulb that went off during that trip, which was realizing the difference between owning your company and operating your company. And for me, there wasn't a difference before that trip, but because I was so in the details and I needed to be a part of everything, and I had this guilt that if I wasn't a part of everything, I was doing a disservice to my company, which in fact was the opposite of what I learned from Tony Robbins and you and Toby and everyone that was in that experience was you got to get out of your own way. You have to really be the person that's creating focus and resilience and the guiding light to move the company forward. Don't be the person that's in the details of the present. Be the person that's bringing the company forward and make that where you focus the energy, the operations, the processes, and the efficiency. And so for me, what I realized was it was our community. It was our ambassador network that was our secret sauce. And when I went on that trip, we had 1,000 ambassadors. And when I came,
and you say ambassadors, but which can mean a lot of things. What do you mean by that?
So ambassadors for Lively are women that organically choose to share and shout our brand. They're not paid influencers. They're women that truly believe in the mission of the brand and share content, share in real life events and experiences. They are the stickiness of the brand. And so we realized that these women were doing the marketing and the spreading of the brand in a grassroots way through digital and social. And the way that brands used to take a decade to build, we were able to do that in a matter of condensed months and years.
When you're there at the beginning, you sort of become a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife. You have to do everything as an entrepreneur. And then over time, there is this pull to become well-rounded. And actually, the best entrepreneurs I know, myself included, you included, like we are not well-rounded. We actually are fairly spiky objects. And I think what's so important to understand is that rather than trying to mitigate all your weaknesses, if you have something, if you have a superpower, try to improve that superpower, sharpen those edges and those points. But that's not intuitive to entrepreneurs who generally just kind of need to do everything.
Right. Exactly. You don't need to know how to do everything. You need to know how to lead and provide the resources and the tools for people to get what they need to do done.
You have taken a sledgehammer to a very traditional industry, an industry that frankly has been ran by, old white dudes for a very long time, who certainly, if they don't lack empathy, they lack a deep understanding in most cases of who the customer is. How's that feel?
I mean, I still wake up and pinch myself sometimes when I literally wake up and put Lively on head to toe from my underwear to my bras, my activewear to my loungewear. I'm just like, this is incredible. I just feel like I have been given the greatest gift, that this is, how I get to live my life. And frankly, I realized that in my 20s when I found this industry. Like, I was the person skipping to work. I wasn't the person counting down the minutes in which I could clock out.
Yeah, there was no TGI Fridays for you, like, or I can't believe Monday's around the corner. You looked forward to it.
I look forward to it. And now I just feel that this gratitude has enabled me to pay it forward and see more female founders, more entrepreneurs change the world, because we're not just creating something phenomenal. We're creating something where people feel happier, more confident, more fulfilled. And those people go on to do great things. And so it's just this beautiful snowball effect that I get to be a part of.
Yeah, you also get a chance to influence and sort of pay it forward. I know you spend a lot of time mentoring and advising other entrepreneurs. If you were starting Lively today, would you do anything differently?
Oh, everything. Because the world has moved on since I started Lively in 2015. When I started Lively, Instagram didn't even have stories. Snapchat wasn't the thing, and TikTok wasn't even anyone uttered.
Yeah, no one even heard about it. That's right. I think it was probably Musical.ly at that point.
Musical.ly, and I remember that in Beijing, right? And so I would think about the core values of Lively would be the same, but how we built our grassroots swell and our community would be different, because the consumer has evolved.
Yeah, the strategy is timely, but the mission is timeless.
That's right. And I mean, that is the thing with brand. The brand should be timeless, but the conversation should always be timely.
Yeah, I love that. There are going to be a lot of people watching this who want to be the next Michelle, who want to build the next Lively. What do you say to an entrepreneur that's just getting started, who's probably having a tough day right now, who's watching this and the manufacturer didn't ship out the right products, or they're delayed. Their performance marketing didn't convert the way they thought it would. Some of their staff quit very abruptly. What do you say to those people right now?
I would say, remember why you chose this journey. Most entrepreneurs have this fire inside, this thing that they can't go to sleep at night knowing they're not going to bring to the world or start or do or achieve. And remember that fire. But also remember, the failures are what I call the learning tax. And I paid the learning tax many times. Fail fast, fail quick, and live in beta, because that's how you discover what is unique about you and how you're going to persevere. So anytime that I felt like that kick to the stomach, first thing I did would cry it out. Like sometimes you find me in Bryant Park on a bench, I'm not going to lie. Let it out. And then absorb, what did you learn from that moment, and use that as fire to get up and go forward.
I love that. Live in beta, I think, is such a wonderful way to live. It means that you are constantly, both from a business and a brand perspective, but also as an individual, we are always in flux. We are always a work in progress. And that's such a great place to live. Last question I would ask is, we started the conversation talking about your parents and wanting you to be a doctor or a scientist like the rest of your family. What do they say now?
It's funny. When I look back, there was a part of my life where I didn't give up on that dream for my parents. I went to law school for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, I quit. And when I quit, I was terrified to call my father and tell him that I wanted to go back to this life in fashion. And he said, I just want you to be happy. And what I realized is I fabricated all of that pressure and that idea that success was doctor, lawyer, investment banker. And so what I say to people now is, have the conversations. Don't live life assuming. Ask, discuss, and talk. And so now, looking back, I wish I would have lived in beta sooner.
My favorite stories on Shopify are what I refer to as the homegrown success stories. The people that started at their kitchen table and have grown to be truly leaders in their vertical, leaders in their industry. And frankly, those that were insurgents that have become the incumbents, and they're just getting started. And Lively is one of those stories. Lively is the reason that all of us at Shopify, all 6,000 of us, do what we do. So thank you for letting us play a very small part in your journey, Michelle. Thank you for inspiring us to continue to make entrepreneurship accessible. The fact that you can not only start, that you can not only take something and like an idea and you can turn it into something, but then you can grow it to be one of the leaders in the entire industry that you are in, is incredibly inspiring. And thank you for inspiring so many of us to be great entrepreneurs. And thank you for joining me on The Life of a Rebel.
Thank you so much for having me.